For most of my career, I promoted other people's companies and brands like it was second nature. I would find something that I love, and then I would tell everybody about it. I would scream it from the rooftop. And in many cases, I would even gift it because I wanted them to try it because it was so good and I loved it that much. And when I launched Morphus supplements back in 2023, so last year, something changed. I didn't scream it from the rooftop. I didn't post about it nonstop on social media. I definitely told my friends and family because I was super excited about it, but I don't promote it as much as you would think someone who just launched a new product line would promote it. And today's conversation asked me some really tough questions. And I'm excited to introduce you to our guest because we talked about finances, women in finances, and blockages with money. Before we get started, I would love you to please fill out our menopause research surveys. We have 10 in total, and our newest one is called Doctor Visits. So I would be really grateful if you could fill it out because your responses are going to make a difference and change women's lives everywhere. Today I'm speaking with Jenn Pike. Now here she is. Welcome to Menopause Reimagined, Jenn. Actually, welcome back because you have been here before.
A long time ago.
Long time ago. Yeah, we're actually heading into our 100th episode.
Oh, amazing.
A little bit.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. So I'm happy to have you back on the podcast. And this time I really want to talk about finances for women. And I wanted you on because I was listening to a podcast that you did not too long ago, and you had talked about how you reached your first million in business.
Mhm.
And I want you to tell us your story because I feel as women, and maybe there's some history there that you can fill us in on, but I feel as women, for many of us, and I'm talking about myself included, that money isn't always the most important focus that we put on when it comes to business, life, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I'm curious as to why that is. And I want you to help inspire us to make it more of a focus. And obviously, everything is in balance. But let's talk about that today.
Yeah.
In
Well,
that
for
path.
me, yeah, I can speak to it from my own perspective and experience, and then from a lot of the women that I've worked with over the years. But for me, I was very much like you, Andrea, where I just wanted to help as many women as possible. And so the focus was the impact and building community and just being a resource, right? Like being the lighthouse for so many individuals. And so I always wanted to earn money. We all got to live. But I never had this energy of like, how much can I generate and all of this and that. Like that just wasn't it. But as I started to get more dialed in on the work that I was doing out in the world, and this really started back for me when I opened up, I had a studio that I owned for a period of time. And when I started to see the potential and money was starting to come in, and at that time, having an in person business, also the responsibility and the pressure financially of the cost of running it and all of that, I really hit this period of burnout where I realized that this energy and attitude that I had of give, 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 be the resource, be the light, is I was just like, I was spreading myself so thin. I was diluting my own energy, my own power and potential, and I was crushing my own health. The very thing that I was teaching everyone about, I was actually really fraying behind the scenes. And so, there was a lot of changes that I began to make in my life. And I'm going back to like 2012 right now. But one of the things was recognizing that I had to actually have more diversification in what I was putting out in the world and where and how I could start to generate and receive income. I couldn't have it all in just like one pot and one nest egg, because what if something shifted there? For a myriad of reasons. And so I started to dabble in doing different workshops and events, and those had always come to me really easily. They were all happening in person, which was great. But I could also start to hear and feel the whispers of, if I really do want to create impact and generate good income, I can't just do it within these four walls. I need to be able to have a louder microphone, if you will. And so I ended up selling that studio, and in 2016 I launched my first online program, and it was called 99 Inspired People. And I had no idea what I was doing. I ran it from a Hotmail account. I manually entered everybody in. Like, I had no idea what I was doing. But my motto in life is, I'll just figure it out. I will figure it out.
Exactly.
And so I launched this program. I ended up having 111 women sign up, and it was like an $18,000 launch. And I felt like I had won the lottery. And I was just like, oh my gosh, and then my nervous system caught up to me, and I actually went into panic mode because as much as we were in debt previously at the time, and I have a whole podcast episode earlier on in the days where I talk about this whole thing with my husband and I and some of the things we went through. is that even though, no one desires to be in debt, it was so much more comfortable for me to just live with just enough, or like even a little bit less than enough. That was comfortable and familiar to me. When I started to generate more abundance and more wealth and bring that in, I'd never experienced that before. So it was not comfortable. It actually was quite triggering for me. So I ended up, I couldn't celebrate hitting this milestone for me. When I was asked about it, I would like burst into tears because all I kept thinking was, oh my gosh, what if I can't do this again? And if I do it again, am I going to have to work that hard again? Do I have to, how many times do I have to? And I kept thinking like, what am I going to
Oh,
have
the
to do?
whispers, all these things, the programs, the whispers that you're, thinking about.
Exactly. And so when that happens to us in our life, where we start to think about kind of the worst case scenario side of it, we will upper limit ourselves. We will shrink and we will just stay small and we'll be like, it was uncomfortable over there, but it was more comfortable in what this feeling is. So great, awesome, clap my hands. I've done it once. I'm going to go back. I didn't do that because I was recognizing, I was like, something's here. Started to dive deeper into my own money story, which is, your own energy around money and all of that. And I did a lot of work on that. I started to recognize I had these upper limiting beliefs about myself. And more so than that, I really started to realize that I had fear that my colleagues, the industry, the women that I was helping were going to think of me differently if I was actually becoming wealthy helping them. And
Hmm,
if I was becoming
interesting.
wealthy doing this work in the world. And so I continued to offer these online programs and do these things while I was feeling this, because I was like, I feel like the answer is through this, not around it. So I'm going to keep showing up and create and learn and do all of this. And then fast forward to 4 years after launching that initial program, I had created a whole bunch of other online programs and I got a little bit better and brought in, some help from a team behind me. And in 2017, about a year after that first program, is when I created the Hormone Project. And that for me was really like, oh, this is part of my life's work. And so because I had that confidence and that resonance with what I was doing, that gave me the fuel to be like, you got to keep putting yourself out there. And in 2020, we ended up hitting our first year, our first $1 million year. We had, done this little bit of steady growth. And then 2018, something just clicked. And my revenue from 2017 to 2018 doubled, 2018 to 2019 doubled, and then 2019 to 20 doubled. And then, we've stayed as a 7-figure company for the last 3.5 years. In that journey of hitting those numbers, when I hit the $1 million in 2020, 2021, maybe, I have to go back and look at it. I didn't celebrate. I did not tell anyone. It was like, all of a sudden I was back in that energy of, oh my gosh,
Mm.
what am I going to have to do to hit that again? And what is it going to take? And how much do I really want to work? And like, what do I have in me? And is this what it's going to take? And all these stories started to come up and to surface for me. And so I found myself again sitting in this position of, okay, there's some stuff I got to unpack here about my relationship with time and energy and work, generating, receiving, and what that really looks like. And yeah, that it just opened up a whole new portal for me.
And I can understand that because as we're going into another phase of our life, and I know you speak a lot about perimenopause and menopause, and as we're getting older, the whole, what you just said is, do I really want to work that hard? I mean, that
Mhm.
resonates, right? Because, as entrepreneurs and type A personality, I mean, I'll speak for myself, type A personality, I was always a workaholic. And as now I'm going into now I'm in menopause, I'm really changing my ways. So I get that. Like, do I want to work as hard? So what shifted for you? So how did you handle that moving forward?
You know what? I mean, I'm fortunate enough that I do have a team of incredible women where I could just be honest and say, okay, what got us to this point is actually not sustainable and won't be the way we're going to be able to move forward. So we have to really look in an non-attachment style, look at the company and look at everything that we created to hit these numbers and ask ourselves, like, do I want to keep teaching everything we're offering? Do we want to continue to be promoting this program and that program? And so we had to get deeper into like, what is the impact we're trying to create in the world, and who is it specifically that we are talking to? And what does that look like? Like for us, when you start to hit these numbers, you really do have to reverse engineer your year. You can't just be like, what do we want to launch next month? And what do we want to talk about here? So we have very intentionally strategized, every season and these last few years, and looking at what is going to be the focus at the end of the year? Like, what's the outcome goal? And then how do we move things backwards? What do we need to be talking about in social? What kind of education do I need to be providing on the podcast and on YouTube and in workshops so that we are creating the lead generation to, build into these programs and that we're talking to the right person? Because I could say like, oh, I'm for all women, but I'm not. I'm no longer talking to the 20-year-old anymore. And I'm not talking to the 70-year-old right now. And I'm not really talking to, the brand new mom right now. I'm talking to a certain demographic of women that are in their mid 30s to, their mid 50s who are, early perimenopause in the thick of it or, postmenopausal. And I just had to get very clear on that. And then in terms of like with the money, when I started to generate it and bring it in, the big question was always, well, what do you do with that? Like, I don't live a lavish life. My husband and I, where we would spend the most money in our life would be on the quality of food we put into our body and experiences and travel with our family. We don't drive fancy cars. We like none of those things matter to us. So it was like when I started to generate this level of wealth, it was incredible and it was scary because I was like, so what do you do with all the money? And then this started to uncover some other things for me. So I was like, well, if we just think of what we were taught about money in school, it's not a lot. And then if you think
Not a
what you're
lot.
taught about, no. And then it's like, well, your education also can't be sitting at the bank with someone. And so most of us grow up with either a combination of what you learned in school, the bank, or what your parents taught you.
Mhm.
And my parents had never created this kind of wealth. And so my husband and I sat in this position where I was like, well, I need to get myself in a different room with people who have been where we are now and who have, kind of moved forward. And so it was learning more, not even just about how to generate the money, but how do I hold it? How do I hold it energetically? Where do I invest? What are some of the options that we have? How do I run the back end of like bookkeeping and accounting in a company? Like it hit, let me tell you, these last few years, I have been in a whole new kind of school that I never thought starting off 27 years ago as an exercise specialist and a nutritionist that I would ever have had to know these things because again, we're not taught it then. And so it's been really awesome and it's been a lot.
And I love that you talk about it so openly too, right? And maybe, I know a lot of men who are very vocal about the amount of money that they make, but you
Yeah.
don't often hear women talking about it.
Yeah, because it's there we're listen, I don't actually feel like I talk about it probably as much as I should or I could in that because you're always worried about what are the other women going to think about me. And, what's my family going to think about me or what's the neighbor going to think? What are the kids' friends going to think? Like there is always that kind of running concern in the back of your mind of are people going to think that, this is ostentatious or whatever it may be. And so yeah, it's not something, I mean, in the last few years, we've seen a lot more women talk about wealth and income and all of that. And our ability to share stories and to be honest and talk openly is how we pull any of the stigma off of it. It's how we start to normalize. Why can't we have a conversation about, I'm not like showing you a pay stub. I'm not talking about, I haven't mentioned other than like hitting 7 figures. I'm not mentioning crude numbers, but it is, we get a little weird around money because it can be triggering for so many people. And
Mm.
I've been triggered by it. It's still something that I continue to work on. And money is very much also tied to our worth, right? Like when we started to generate bigger numbers as a company, I was like, oh, like, who am I?
Hmm.
Do you know what I mean? Like, and especially in our industry, it's not something that typically when you start off working on your own and that happens unless you build some like big clinic, big agency, big something like it just, but I think one of the other things is that because I've only ever said yes to things that I am so passionate about. Like the reality is every single thing I have done in my business, I would have done for free.
Hmm. I get you. I hear you. And the
Right?
same, right? Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Because we love what we're doing. We're so passionate about what we're
Mhm.
doing. We want to
Mhm.
change the world. We want to help people, right? So
Yeah.
exactly.
But what I can tell you is that in helping my own money story and getting to a place where, when we were broke and we were in debt, and now being on the other side of that is like how much more you can do when you are a wealthy woman, how much more you can do when you have financial literacy as a woman. Like, we have been able to be angel investors in incredible companies. We've been able to help other individuals. We've been like, I can employ a team of all women and mothers and be able to pay them and help them every single month and create opportunity for them. So, and that for me was what I had to start to focus in on and channel. And also recognizing that so many of the inflammatory health issues that were coming up in my own body and in the bodies of the women that I were working with, if you really talk to them about what are some of the big stressors in your life, money and finances were always up there. And so was time management and
Mm.
overwhelm and burnout. And, like there's not a supplement that is going to help that. That is something that it's doing what we're doing right now and talking about it. And yeah.
I wonder if the younger generation is gonna be different and different than the Gen X or the baby boomer generation, and they're gonna talk about it more openly, like, that money won't be so much of a taboo. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I'm seeing it in our household. Now, again, we've raised our kids in a way where this is normal conversation, around the dinner table and in the kitchen. And so, like, for instance, our oldest, she's going to be 18 in June, and she knows, okay, at 18, she's actually going to start up her own, tax-free savings account. And that, she knows that they understand what compounding interest is. And, when they, like, I grew up in an environment where when I got my first job, which was at McDonald's, my dad said to me, you're probably not going to like this, but I'm going to take 10% of every check and I'm going to invest 10%. At the time, my dad was putting it into mutual funds and like GICs. And I was like, I'm making $4.25 an hour and you're going to take 10% of my, like, I wasn't happy, but I can tell you I was really happy, 4 years later when my dad showed me my statement of compounding interest, and that money helped me when I went off to school.
Right.
And so, those kind of things we've talked about with our kids and set in motion. And my husband in these last few years, my husband is a custom builder and contractor, and he ran a really successful company in Ontario. And we moved out here to Kelowna 2.5 years ago. He did a couple of builds and he was like, I don't actually want to physically keep doing this with my body moving forward. I was like, well, what else do you love and are you interested in? And he was like, he loves finance. He went to school for engineering. He has that mind and so he ended up, doing his brokerage license. And now what he does is he helps entrepreneurs and families really understand, like, you know, protection and tax sheltering and all those kind of things, but like investments on a different level, not like, oh, I'm just going to go slide it into this market and then I'll get a statement every month and not understand my statement, but just trust the advisor, right? There's a difference in things like that. And so the kids have just watched us. They've watched us build companies. They've watched us go through times when there wasn't money. They've watched us be in a period of time of when there has been money. They've witnessed us make, different decisions. They've asked us questions like, if you're making more money, why are you still driving a Honda? If you're making more money, why aren't we buying this? If you're making more money, why don't we live in this subdivision or in this house instead of that? And we are explaining to them, like, those are things and stuff, and they're not what add value for us in our life. And we could take money that we're not spending in those things and we can go and travel and go to this place, or we could go and put money into this thing. And it's interesting, like these last 5, 6 months in business, I've worked about 50% less than I did in the last 4 years.
Wow.
And I had the opportunity to do that because of what I, generated in the last few years and how I structured the back end of my money. I wasn't freaking out when numbers would be less than what they were the month before. I was allowing myself to really recalibrate instead of reacting and being like, oh my gosh, we didn't hit this number. Okay, what do we got to do? What do I need to go and teach? Where do you need me to be? And that's how I did the majority of my life, was I would react. There's not enough money. No problem. I'll just go give someone my arm. I'll just go book more things into my calendar. You need me to make money, I'll go make it. I'll pimp myself out, is essentially like what I did for so long in my career. And then when I started to just move my money differently, I was like, I'm fine. I cannot work at all for the next, 6 months and we will be okay. And that feeling, like I could actually even just
Mm.
cry thinking about that because I remember what it felt like literally only 12 years ago, driving my children to daycare. I was only making enough money running my company for someone else to look after my babies while I went and served every single woman in that community. And I was making literally nothing that was take home pay at the end of the month. And I would pray every single day driving my children to daycare so I could go to the studio. If I could just bring home $2,000 a month, life would change. If I could just bring home life would change. And that was like the slow leak that I didn't realize was just deteriorating me behind the scenes until I hit that point of absolute burnout where it was like, there's no more of me to give anyone. And it took a mentor in my life to just be like, you have a decision here.
Mm.
You can close down, you can like, now I mean, just remember him saying to me, like, you're not going to die, Jen. Like, you'll create something else you can, but you got to ask yourself, what do you actually want? What are you prepared to do and to change to get there? And what is a non-negotiable hell no for you?
Mm.
And it's 12 years I've been on the journey since that conversation. And what we see on Instagram or what we hear someone talk about is we're like, oh, last year they were in $65,000 in debt and now they're a millionaire. And so I'm going to go create that. I'm going to have a six-figure launch in 90 days. I'm going to do this one thing once. I'm going to write a book and then I'm going to become, the known expert on that. And so we tell ourselves this story and we muster up energy and to go and do this thing once. And then if it doesn't work or it's not as successful, we're like, well, I tried, it didn't work. I'm
Mm.
like, holy shit, I have been trying things for 27 years
Exactly. Exactly.
and I'm still over here trying.
You touched upon something before where you said, this is my life purpose when you created the hormone project.
Mhm.
And, for me, when it comes to having that passion, that makes it so much easier to create because if you're loving what you're doing, then you're going to find it. Like, and you said it, it was so easy to do. It was something
Yeah.
that, kind of came second nature to me. What do you feel changed for you in allowing you to go and create that abundance in your life?
In terms of when like what helped me know that this was an ooh moment, like the thing, or like, is that what you mean? Or literally what helped me shift from how I had been doing
Literally,
things before? Okay.
literally how
So
you
it,
shifted.
it was the strategy.
Okay.
It was going from, journaling it down to myself was not making it a reality. Talking about it again and again to people was not making it a reality. I had to actually link arms with other people. I needed mentors in my life and people who had done the thing that I kept talking and journaling about. So I hired an intern and we figured things out together. I had to have a stronger back end. I needed to understand new concepts I had never heard of before, like lead generation and email campaigns and conversions and an editorial calendar and a funnel and a nurture sequence and opening the cart and all of these things where I was like, what are we talking about? And so that was huge for me. When I say I've had to go back to school again and again, it has not been, I did not take another certification. I did not go and take another, course in that way. I immersed myself in the world of business to learn how to take my passion and my purpose and now monetize it. I learned how to monetize my mind and my knowledge.
Mm.
So it was a very strategic way. And it took us from the first online program in 2016. It took us 5 years to hit seven figures. And again, that was very intentional. So it was 2021 when I hit the million. In 2020, we did like $586,000. And I was like, and I had been tracking, like I still have my same chart to the right-hand side of me. And I've tracked and I have every year on here from 2016 moving forward because it motivates me and it inspires me and it reminds me of potential and what's possible. And when I started to see the numbers that were happening, Like, I remember being at like 300 and something part, and I was like, oh my God, we're going to do $500,000. And I was like, $500,000. Now, let's keep in mind, that doesn't go in my pocket. That's what like revenue
Yeah,
generated as a
of
company.
course. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And this is a big part of what I teach in the work that I do now to women in business and entrepreneurs is you have to understand the language of numbers, just like you and I teach the language of our bodies.
Mhm.
The story of our bodies, you have to understand your numbers. So there's revenue generated, and then you've got your actual profit and your cash flow. And so when I started to see it happening, so when we hit the 500,000, I was like, oh my God, if I can just like repeat this again and again, this is amazing. And then something happened. And what happened is that I can't even tell you exactly what it is other than consistently doing the reps. It was I've emailed my list since 2015, 3 times a week, every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday. I showed up on social. I continued to put my boots on the ground. And even when I was getting more popular online, I was still doing in person. I was still doing events and things for free. I was asking other people who had successful communities, can I come and speak to your community? I never stopped working and putting myself out there. And literally something happened where all of a sudden I went from running, I was running back to back rounds of the hormone project, and I would work with like 10 or 12 women at a time. And all of a sudden it was like, oh, I have 18 women that have registered this round, and then 22 women, and then 39 women. And then I can't handle more women. We have a wait list now. And that for me was whoa, like what have I actually created? I'm onto something here. And then it was, I need to bring in on another practitioner. I can't manage this many clients on my own. And then I started to build out the back end of our clinical team of bringing other functional medicine practitioners in and doing all, and that though the hormone project combined with running an online movement studio synced, combined with still doing these workshops and then offering business mentorship, it was having diversification. I had a signature hormone program, I had a movement program, I had a business mentorship program. And it was those three things that came together that is what generated, the big amount of money in the background. So I know how a lot of people talk about you need to have your niche, you need to do one thing and just repeat it again and again. I'm like, yes, and you cannot have all your eggs in one basket. So for me, on the outside, it'll look like, oh, you do so many different things. And I'm like, I really don't. I do one thing. I have one root system that has many branches. I am talking to the same individual in everything that I do. But I'm talking to the woman over here who may be in a time in her life where she feels like her hormones are ruling the roost, and that's where she needs to be. And then I'm talking to that same woman who wants to move her body and understand more about her cycle and, all of that, and that's synced. And then that same woman also happens to be a business owner or high up in a company or a subcontracted employee or an entrepreneur, and she also needs support. So again, it's like that is a niche.
Yeah, definitely.
But what I see a lot of people doing is they put all of their energy in one program, in one offer. And when, for whatever reason, your community is just not responding to that offer, or you've not done enough lead gen where you've not grown your email list. So you're talking to the same people again and again. It's like when we talk about conversions, it is like if you wanted one person to sign up for your program, you probably need to have at least 20 to 25 eyes on that thing for one of them to convert. And so when we think about this illusion, like if I can get 20 people to sign up, that's a lot. It took me years to get 20 people to sign up. And sometimes we can launch something out in the world and we have like the 99 inspired people, 111 people sign up. That can happen one time. But do you have a system put in place where that is repeatable? Do you have the back end to support onboarding as many people as you desire? And this is where we get lost and then we get frustrated and we just stop and we go, I'm going to change direction and go over here. And it's like there's so many of the people that I support in business, there's absolutely nothing wrong with their offer. Their offer is incredible. They don't have a system of how to effectively market and advertise the offer and then nurture the community that is like, hey, I'm kind of interested. They need more time to convert. Not everybody is going to be a yes right away.
Mm. What do you think like when you think about your mindset? So you're talking about, the 300,000 and then you went to 500,000. What clicked for you? describe your mindset as much as you could from how you went to, oh my God, that's amazing, 300. And, I'm okay with the 500. And now let's get to that million. What, like, I'd love to know what was going on inside your mind at the time.
Okay, so when we hit the 586,000, I was like, wow, that was fucking fun. Like, I was like, that was really fun how we did it that year, because that year was my year of yes. I was asked to teach in places where I was like, that's an interesting spot to teach. Okay, sure, I'll go and teach there. And it turned out to be awesome. I was asked to be on different, podcasts. I was still doing TV at the end of late 2019. I was still doing very beginning of 2020, and then I stopped. And so I was just saying yes to different opportunities. And so when it was like, oh, this was fun, my team and I just asked this question, and we're like, so what if it gets to be more fun? If it's more fun, do we get to bring more abundance in? And so that was the energy, was like, let's let it be fun. And that was the whole energy going from 500,000 to 1 million, is let's let it be fun. Now it was fun. And then we got there and I was like, oh my gosh, how much fun can one person have? Because I think if I have to do that again, I don't know if it's going to feel fun,
Yeah.
the same way that you hit it. And so then that required a whole new mindset shift.
I love that. And exactly, mindset shift, right? So and getting to those different levels does require you to have those shifts in mindset, right? So and it's also like talk about your goals. Like you were talking about before, like you have it all on your wall and that inspires you. Do you at the beginning of every year or at the end of every year write down the goals with your team, sit there with your team, create those goals and then check it off as you go through them? Yep, done. We got there. Yeah, we gone there. We got there. You talked about strategy at the beginning. So explain a little bit about how you do that.
Yeah, so we do that. I have my director in my company, Vanessa, and I mean, we meet weekly and we reevaluate every week, like what's working, what's not. We chunk things out looking at the year as a whole. Like what are the 2 to 3 impacts we want to create this year? That's all. 2 to 3 impacts we want to create this year. And really that comes down to like me, like what is the imprint that I want to have out there in my community? Or what is something new that I want to do, or something that we've already been doing that I want to, like, our last couple of years have been a refinement. It's not been launching major new stuff. It's been refining what's there, right? Updating those kind of things. And then it is okay. So if that's what we want to create, now what do we already have in-house going on that we can utilize to create that? And you have to choose. Like when I said that, 2 years ago, about a year and a half ago, I took 9 different programs that we had been selling behind the scenes and we archived them. And the reason is they were profitable, they were doing well, but that was 9 additional things that we had to give real estate to in our email list, on our social. And so I made the decision to go and park those and just archive them so that we could dial in and focus on some of the new things we were doing. So then once you know your year, then you have to chunk it down. Everybody will say quarter, right? Quarterly, 4 quarters in a business year. For us, we talk about it in seasons. So we looked at things seasonally. Okay, if we have, the hormone project runs for 3 months, it means at most you can run that 4 times throughout the year and go through a 12-week series if we launched it. So what would it look like if we just did 4 launches throughout the year? Okay, this is how we would do it. Well, what would it look like if we onboarded monthly? And it was just a ongoing enrollment, and I just rotated through the topics and guest speakers and faculty and that. How many more women could we potentially connect with and plug them into our support without them having to wait for the next launch? So we ask ourselves questions like this. It has to actually come down to, Jen, what's your energetic capacity? Do I have the capacity to support my team onboarding women every single month? Do I have the capacity to launch because if you're going to launch, 4 times a year, it means that halfway through that 3-month program you're running, you are already back in another launch period because you got to be ready for the next group to come on. And so then we look at it quarterly and we come back and then we say, okay, we have agreements with some of our show partners and sponsors. We have to also bring that in. I need to be doing lead generation. So I have to be offering free masterclasses and workshops. I'm recording a podcast. So how does all this fit, Jen? It's all awesome, these ideas you have, but this is why plugging it into the calendar and having a system is so important, Because then when we look at all of, the vision, the dream, now we see the reality and go, okay, well, and where's holidays? And what's going on here or there? And then so once we have the seasons all down, and then we meet with our team as a whole, and we're like, this is the focus right now. This is what we're going to be talking about in social. These are the calls to action that we're going to create. These are the offers. We know what our sales are going to be for the whole year. We know all our promotions we're going to do for the whole year. And again, this just comes from time of learning and doing these things. So this year, when we sat down in November to look at what 2024 was going to be, my team, all I had was one word. I did not have the 2 to 3 impacts I wanted to create. I had one word,
Which was?
and the word was calibration. And I said, this year moving forward for me feels like a recalibration in what we're doing and why we're doing it and how we're doing it. And, I have a business coach and a mentor, and I'm part of a coaching community that is actually the polar opposite of how I run my life. And it's been really interesting being in a very male, masculine energy environment, watching and witnessing. And I'm in here with entrepreneurs who are doing like millions a month, not a year, a month. And it's been really cool to learn and to see what that takes. And it's been very affirming for me that at this time in my life, I don't have any interest in building my company out in a way for it to do those kind of numbers, because I see what it requires. And I just know the kind of life that I want to live moving forward. So, yeah.
It's so interesting how age, so women, as we go into perimenopause and menopause, and specifically menopause, how it's such a phase of empowerment, and it's a phase of understanding, and it's an accumulation of our life experiences. So we've got that perimenopause recalibration stage, and then you've got, the menopause stage, also recalibration in the sense of maybe you're looking to change your career or change up things the way you've done it before. And so much of it coincides with not wanting to work as much and wanting to, especially if you've come from that, that space, right? Or wanting more balance in your life and wanting to sleep more because, hey, we need to sleep more now that we're in this phase of life, and we
Yeah,
need
we
to
do.
have less stress because we're more susceptible to stress and we can't deal with it as well or cope with it as well. And it's just an interesting, when I look, I think about it a lot. And for my whole life, I was always in that building mode, and I'm going to build and I'm going to build and I'm going to build. And now that I'm here, I'm still building, but I'm also enjoying, and I'm also in balance more. And I'm
Mm,
also, I love angel cards, and I know that you're also very spiritual.
yes.
And I used to all the time, without fail, Jen, I would do my angel cards, and it would come up as you need more balance in your life. Always. Like, and I'm like, wait a second, are the cards like rigged or
Yeah. Is
something?
there
Like,
only one? Is this a 52 deck of like all the
I'm
same
like, I
message?
don't get it. How am I always getting the same darn card? But lately, I don't get that card anymore. And
Mm,
it's so interesting because I found more balance. I'm not working till 2 in the morning anymore. I really tried it in my night. Like, now I'm in the middle of writing a book. So things are a little bit different because I'm on a
yes.
deadline. But really, for the last several years, I have been so good at balance. So it's so interesting to me to hear you speak, and you're like, well, I don't want to work as hard as these guys are doing to make millions of dollars a year. So it's like finding that balance that works for you.
And okay, there's two things I want to say on that. So I love this so much where this is going. So the first for me is because I have spent my whole life working with women. I mean, I had a stint for a couple of years working with professional NHLers, and that was cool and fun. But when I started to work with women, I was like, this is my crew. And the whole time that I've worked with women over all these decades, I've seen what happens when you live a life based off of nonstop sacrifice. I have seen it firsthand. I have picked these women up off the floor. I have cried with them. I have I have just felt it on every level in my body. And so every time I feel myself going to that place personally, I am like, oh no, come back. Like
Mm.
come back. That actually is not what we're here for. We are not meant to live life that way. And so for me, one of the other reasons, and this is the other thing I wanted to say, that it is so important to work on your energy with money and your story with money and your understanding of money and all of those things is that I no longer feel like the way for us as a family or myself to live a wealthy life is for me to constantly have to earn more money. I now have a very different way of looking at how the money I have already earned and the money that I will earn can actually grow without me having to do more. And
Mhm.
that's where understanding different investment opportunities and diversification in that and all of those different things make such a huge impact as you actually can calm down and be like, I was never taught that. I did not know that. And it really, for me, took a lot of pressure off of me, and no one else was putting the pressure on me. I was
Oh,
putting the
yeah, it's
pressure
coming
on
from
me.
you, of course.
100% it was
Entrepreneurs,
coming.
I mean, it's right?
Here's the beauty of being an entrepreneur. There's no ceiling onto what you can earn. And the other side of that is that you also have no boss to motivate you. You are the everything.
Yeah.
This is also why having a coach, a mentor, a sounding board, or even a colleague who is just like, and it's somebody, for me anyways, I've always needed to be surrounded by people who aren't at the exact same level because you kind of end up commiserating around the things that you don't understand that aren't working. I've always like gone in with the people where I'm like, I do not belong here because I learn.
Yeah.
And the more
And you
I
push yourself,
learn,
right? It
a
pushes you.
100%, 100%. And sometimes the learning is, like I said, it's the program I'm in right now. The learning for me has been, I don't want to push myself.
Yeah. Good point. You're
Yeah.
like, been there, done that. I don't even want to work as hard and I want to just, and I'm happy with what I have. And I'm happy that you talked about the investment piece of it, right?
Mm.
And because for so many of us, it's like I have to work harder to earn more money.
Yes.
But at some point it's like I want to work less and still and earn more money, right? So
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
it's it's that change in mindset that can make a really big difference.
Massive, massive. And that was a big change as well too, from going, I used to only calculate all of my income potential based on everything I did was an hour service, right? Personal training was an hour service, nutrition was an hour service, all of these things were an hour service. And it's like, well, you can only fit so many people in. And that was
Right.
the birthplace, thank goodness, for group programs and doing all of that. And this is again where the mindset piece, it's like how you are looking at something right now. If you were to just shift that 2 millimeters, just like turn it ever so slightly, you will see what you're doing from a totally different angle. And now it doesn't mean you have to burn everything down you've created. You just tweak it ever so slightly and you create more potential.
What advice would you give to our listeners who are like, you know what? I am ready to create something new. I want to start something. I want to, whether it's leave a new job or maybe I want to create my own company. What advice would you give to them having been doing this for 27 years and now you're kind of, you've learned so much?
Yeah. Get really clear on why and what. So what is it? Like when somebody says, "Oh, I'd love to do my own thing on the side." I'm like, "Well, tell me more." And if they're like, "Well, I don't know exactly what," I'm like, "Okay. So before you go and invest in anything, like figure it out. What do you love? What is your skill? What is the thing that like everyone says to you, "Oh my gosh, you are incredible at this." And when you think about it, it doesn't even feel like work. It lights you up. Like I said earlier, you would do it for free. Like what is that thing? And then ask yourself, is this something that you actually could see, like you visually and you can like viscerally feel that you could create something out of this and monetize it? Because there's a lot of things that many of us are good at, but can you monetize it? Not everybody is going to pay for the thing that you are good at. So is this something that could be monetized repeatably, sustainably? And then the next question to ask yourself is, how do you envision this coming together? Like, are you doing this from home? Are you online? Do you have to be in a physical space? Start to ask yourself some of those questions and give yourself way more time than you think. So if you're like, I'm just going to journal for a half an hour today about it, a day, give yourself a day because it's exhausting when you're honest with yourself and you start to visualize and dream. And then the other thing is, if you do have someone in your life who is an entrepreneur, who has gone through kind of a similar journey, doesn't have to be in your industry at all. Ask them questions. Like that was my whole thing is when I started to recognize that I was kind of going nowhere quickly when we were in debt and I was running the studio. I literally picked up my phone and I started to call every person I viewed as being successful that I knew in my life. And I was like calling clients that were real estate agents and like all different, nothing. One of my clients owned a freight company, nothing to do with my industry, but I had watched her build something successful as a
Right.
mother. And I was like, I just need you to give me something. Like,
Mm.
and so do that. When you see someone hosting a masterclass or a workshop, don't sit there and be like, I'll just wait for the next one. Go and register for it. Actually listen to it. Like, start to take action on these dreams that you have.
I love that, Jen. And I have one question, and this is more a question for me because for the longest time, I mean, I've been in the health and wellness industry for almost 25 years, very close
Yeah.
to you.
Yeah.
And so we've known each other for a long time. We're both holistic nutritionists. And one of the things I'm really good at is promoting other people, other brands, other products. And in 2021, we launched Morphus.
Hmm.
And in 2023, we just had our year, we launched our supplement line, which you could see right behind me.
Yes, yes.
We launched in the US. But it's so interesting because I'm not great. Like I'm hesitant. I try to promote it as much as I can, but I'm so comfortable promoting other people's products as opposed to my own products. So I'm wondering, I'm like, okay, Jen, I'd love some advice. How do I get out of my own head? Because I mean, obviously, what I love to do is to help people, but I
Yeah.
don't want to make it seem that I'm like, oh, I just want you to buy my products. Like, how do I
Uh-huh.
get out of my head around that? Because that to me, I'd say, and Randy, who's my business partner, is like, you need to talk about our products more. And I'm like, but no, I want to just help people.
So this is actually a really great example of there's a block energetically in the money story, which is it is so easy to talk about everyone else's product because this isn't your product. People may know that you might get the product for free, you get paid some money on the back end, but it's not your be all and end all. And so you're not worried about what people really think. As right now, this is your baby. You have created it. Your name is on it. You're responsible for it. And people
My
are going to have that
baby.
energy. Like, does she actually really believe in it? Or is she just talking about it because it's her product, right? People always do that thing.
Mm,
And so for you yourself, if you're going to get in your head and think like, what are people going to think of all I'm talking about is my product in that, you have to start to do some work on like, why do you have fear and resistance around that? Like, what
mm.
is the worst thing that you envision could happen? What's your greatest fear about you showing up every day and promoting and talking about it's not See, when we do product promotion, it's not like, hey, here, go and buy Fiber Us, right? It is like, do you understand why it is so important to have the most kick ass bowel movements every single day? Do you understand the role that fiber plays in not just your gut health, but your triglycerides and cholesterol and supporting your body as a whole? Do you understand? And so it's like taking what you're so good at, which is helping people, and like flipping it on its side and making it less about the actual product and more about the benefit of what the product unlocks in your body. Because now what you're doing is you're transforming it so that you're explaining the benefits for them. This isn't about me. This isn't about you buying from my company. This is putting a product that is incredible, that is, the efficacy of it and the testing and the quality
The
is so
research,
incredible, everything behind it.
everything,
This
everything.
is putting this in your hand to benefit you. And that is the change. You've been doing this forever on TV and in print for other people's companies.
I have.
The work for you to do, like if I was coaching you on this, would be to explore what is that worst case, like what is your worst fear that could happen with you promoting your own company and somebody, saying something to you or the way that you envision it could look on the outside. And so that would be part of it. And the second part would be kind of the example that I gave there, which is don't lead with the product, lead with what you love, which is the education and the benefits and everything that you and Randy have created in the last X amount of years around women's health and well-being and the research. Like I see Carrie and I are girlfriends. I see Carrie sharing about stuff that's happening and coming out in the research that you girls are doing
Yes,
and
thank
all
you.
of that. And so think about it through that thread and that lens. And it's going to feel uncomfortable in the beginning. And the only way, it's like I said a while ago, the only way that you actually can move through this is to move through it. And it's going to feel, clunky and uncomfortable until it doesn't. Because what'll happen is the more people who get their products into their bodies, Andrea, from your company, they're going to feel incredible. And then they're going to start to talk about that. And as soon as you have a handful of amazing results from clients, you have that credibility now. And now that will change the energy of when you start to show up and talk about a product.
I love it. And it already does. I mean, our feedback is amazing. And I love hearing that. And you're right. And I'm going to like I'm changing it. It's so funny, Jen. Like I get, because I'm on social media and I like you, have a following, the companies are reaching out to me who have competitive products and they're like,
I
hey,
know.
do you want to promote our product? And I laugh. And Randy's like, because you're not talking about our products.
Right.
So I laugh, right?
But
I'm
this
like,
is
yeah.
also another opportunity for you now because you actually like, and this is like a whole nother conversation. So this is my brain. I am like, I love mentoring in business so much because I just see potential in everything. And so you have this incredible opportunity because of all your years of being an affiliate and being a partner and, doing all of this work where you could actually create an incredible program within your own company where you actually teach and train people how to be awesome affiliates and provide them with the education and all of those different things. And then that creates another profit stream for your company. So you are training mini Andreas who you've been for the last 20 years all over television to go and be that. Like, imagine if you had a you for your company that could go out there and talk and educate in that way. And you build this really kick-ass affiliate program behind the scenes, which they take time to get off the ground. I've helped lots of people build these out. I have girlfriends who run companies. It takes some time, but once you get that up and going, it's incredible.
Yeah. No, thank you. It's food for thought for sure. And I'm excited about what's to come. And I'm going to change my mindset. So for everyone who's listening, go buy Morphus products. See, I'm
There,
already doing it.
yeah.
There you go. Go buy Morphus products if you're in the US. Unfortunately, if you're in Canada, you can't right now, but hopefully very soon, hopefully by 2025. But yeah, no, our products are kick-ass. They're amazing. And the thing is, Jen, I would never launch anything that I don't take myself, would recommend to my
100%.
family.
Yep.
Randy wouldn't take herself, that doesn't have clinical research behind it and is top notch quality. I mean, hands down. And that is why we have our products and why I
And
launched
here's
them.
the thing is that your grassroots community already know that about you. It's
Mm,
not the people who you already have in your community that you are worried about. It's the fact that this is now like, you know, North American wide. It's in the US right now. It will be in Canada. So it's opening you up to a whole new community of people in that who don't know that your word is like a stamp on a
gold,
product.
gold.
Exactly. Exactly. So, that'll just come with time.
I love it, Jen. Thank you so much. Is there anything that we didn't talk about that you feel would provide value to our listeners before we go?
I mean, we moved in a few different directions, which is great. And I really just hope for those that are listening who are in business or thinking about that, like, don't just let this be a page that lives in a journal forever. If it's something that you are really lit up about and passionate about, seek out opportunities to start to bring this to life. And so go back and listen to this again, specifically in the last like 12, 15 minutes where I talked about some of those things that you can do for yourself. I have different business workshops and master classes that happen throughout the year. So pay attention and watch for those and embrace your numbers. Stop being afraid of them.
Mm.
Like our bodies hold all this knowledge and wisdom. I promise you, so do your numbers. And even when they're scary, because like I said, I have been there before, um, there is a lot of information sitting right in front of you. Don't outsource this to other people. Start to study your numbers, study your habits, your spending, your relationship with money, and you will be blown away at what it reveals. And, just like how we can reverse a lot of chronic health conditions, you can reverse chronic financial issues as well too. And your health and your wealth are intrinsically connected. And so, yeah, I would leave it with that.
I love it, Jen. And we put your social media underneath you so they could follow you. But if you want to just let everybody know, I know you're huge on Instagram, and if you want to share your different social channels as well.
Instagram is the only place I hang out. I only chose one. It's
You
like I
only
can't
chose one.
do them
Well,
all.
that's a good thing too. That
Yeah,
simplifies it.
exactly. So yeah, it's just my name, Jenn Pike, Jenn with two N's, and then website, jennpike.com. And then my podcast, The Simplicity Sessions.
which I'm excited to be on as well. So thank you,
Yeah,
Jenn. I'm so grateful that you did this today. And
thank
for all of
you.
you who are listening, I hope you got tremendous value. I love that Jenn came on the podcast to talk about women in finances. It's a path that I've been on for a while, and it's something that Randy's been talking to me about. So I am making myself a promise, and I'm saying it right here on the podcast, that I'm going to talk about Morphus supplements more now. I formulated Sleep S myself, and all the products that we sell, by the way, have clinical research behind it. They're top-notch ingredients. They're amazing. And I take them myself. Randy takes them herself. My mother takes it. My sister takes it. So these are ingredients that we're not just saying you should take, we take it ourselves. And that's why our products, our company is created by women in menopause, because we're right there with you. So if you enjoyed today's interview, please share it, because the more you share shows you care. And please take a moment to fill out our research surveys. I would be extremely grateful. We have some really cool things coming up, but I need your help to get those responses. So we put a link below. Please go fill them out, especially our doctor's visit survey. And I appreciate you for spending the last hour and a bit with me. As always, I know there's a lot you can be doing, but you chose to spend your time with me. So thank you. I'll see you at the next interview.